This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
The blood washed away, but the guilt never does. Welcome to Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, featuring psychotherapist and author Siobhan Scott.
Sean Diddy Combs, it's not going to be a white Christmas, an at-home Christmas, let's get together for the holidays at all. The judge saying, you're going to stay behind bars. As we continue to learn more and more about this man's ill adventures throughout the years, going all the way back to 1999 in that nightclub shooting involving Shine, a new documentary out about that. We'll talk on that in just a moment. Joining me, Siobhan Scott, psychotherapist and author. Let's talk about that Shine situation for a little bit. There's that new doc that's out on Hulu that talks about exactly what took place all those years ago. Essentially, it all comes down to this up-and-coming, aspiring rapper that was on the Bad Boy label, took the heat for the shooting in that nightclub all those years ago, spent 10 years, but at the end, some positive came out of all of this. Let's talk about how this all began and just kind of what kind of human being it takes to say, you're going to take the rap from me on this, and also someone who's going to say, yeah, I'll do that for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes back to what I see with Diddy, all these stories, the things that come out about him repeatedly, the cascade of bad information and about his behavior. It strikes me as someone who really sees himself as God, that he has this sense of godlike power over all these people around him, friends and foes, and that he can do anything he wants, and for many years got away with it. And so I don't know if we'll ever know the full extent of the people that he's done wrong.
Let's talk about that, because I know God complex is a thing. Let's start there. What is it all about? How do people develop this? And then I want to ask you a few more questions after that.
Yeah, I think we get into that lovely N-word that we talk about all the time, narcissism. And that this is something that developed very early in his life, this sense that he's special, that he's different from other people. And we used to think that narcissism was always caused by being abused as a child. And while that can be true sometimes, people are covering up for a sense of inadequacy, it can also be caused by people who are told they're special. Yeah. And that they deserve special things and that they're better than other people. And they incorporate that into their identity. And so that's the way they act out in the world. Now, the other thing that seems to fit with Diddy is this concept of addiction. And, we've often traditionally thought of addiction being something like addicted to alcohol or cigarettes. So you had alcohol or caffeine, nicotine, substances that are addictive. But in truth, behaviors can be addicted too. And that has to do with the dopamine reward system in the brain. So basically, dopamine is the pleasure chemical that's released when we do something that feels good. And for some people, they latch on to certain kinds of behaviors that make them feel good. And as with all addiction, over time, that behavior becomes a little less rewarding. And so they double down and they do it more and they amplify. And their brain eventually wires so that this kind of extreme behavior is what they need to feel normal. They don't feel normal unless they're getting it. And the things that come to mind for me with Diddy, there's probably a lot, but certainly his sexual behavior has this addictive quality to it and why it kept getting more and more extreme over time. His need to control people seems addictive, and also his need for accolades and for attention and to always be the biggest, the best, the baddest, in all these different facets of his life. It just sounds like someone who has out of control behavioral addictions along with that narcissism.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, being addicted to praise. I think a lot of people, that's the explanation for social media. That's what we live in. We live in a world where we're all seeking that praise, that validation, whether it just comes in the form of a like literally just a like, not even words, or verbal, some sort of confirmation of their thinking. How much of our population is addicted to praise these days? I mean, and this seems like something that we didn't necessarily have in the past. I mean, I grew up in a world, I know you did too, where, I don't know, it was more like, you're not super special. You're this, you know, I was told many times, you're not special. You know, you're just like everybody. And I'm okay with that. Like, it's like it kind of made you want to rise up and get to something that is special, because just inherently, we all kind of start at the same place.
Yeah. It's really interesting as you talk about social media to see how this is changing people's personalities and changing the brains. And certainly that's the concern we have with kids who don't know how to manage it, who don't have balanced lives. And you know, I don't have little kids I'm raising at this point. But if I do, boy, I would tightly control their time online and their use of social media, because they don't have the wisdom to know, when am I doing this too much? And that's the tricky thing about the dopamine system. We need it to survive. It's what keeps us seeking healthy food, and what keeps the species procreating, right? We need that dopamine reward system, but it's when it gets out of balance and when it's excessive, you know, that we go for one thing versus having a variety of things we do during the day that bring us pleasure. You know, that's what a healthy person does. But certain people definitely become fixated on one thing. And the thing that we always look for, what makes one thing an addiction and one thing a hobby? Are you having negative consequences from it? And are you unable to dial it back and control it? And if you're having bad consequences, you keep doing it anyway, you keep increasing it, that's when we look at something that may be akin to an addiction.
Society-wise, and also, I guess, individual-wise, and we're talking about Diddy, has the bar been pushed so far high to get that dopamine hit, so far beyond the bounds of where it used to be, that the norm is now so extreme that to get that validation, we're seeing, obviously, a situation like Diddy, that is the example of the most extreme, but just in society in general, needing to get this validation from so many places at once versus just like a true sit down one-on-one conversation with someone whose opinion really matters to you. Mm-hmm. I feel like people would rather take the 50 likes from strangers than the actual one meaningful conversation from someone who can really validate you. Is that accurate as far as how we seem to be operating? It's a very hollow way of living.
Yeah, it is hollow. It is hollow. That was exactly what I was thinking. There's no real depth with that, with the quick fix. Yeah.
I mean, and someone like Diddy going to the quick fix because he had the power to and the money to do whatever. And going back to the God complex, is there ever any turning back from this? Once you've reached that level and you really pretty much feel that you have the power and the influence to do anything you want, number one, do they believe they are God? Or is that more of a metaphorical thing where they just feel like they have that sort of power? But then can they come back once you're there? Like, can you rewire the brain out of that so you're not thinking in these very skewed ways that end up getting someone like him into all of this trouble?
You know, I don't know what the odds for him are. At his age, I think with a younger person, the younger you are, the more flexibility you have with your personality, with things like that. Or is this a guy that's going to his dying day believing that he's better than everyone else and more grand and yes, has the metaphorical sense of control over other people? This might be a person that even if he spends many years in prison behind bars, which is kind of what it's looking like, would he still be the big guy there? And would he still be seeking followers and accolades and getting, you know, all the stacks of love letters in the mail from people? Certainly, I don't think the odds for a lot of personal growth are very high in his case.
How do you think he's processing things right now, where he always used to get the accolades? He was the big party guy. Everybody wanted to go to his things. Now he's sitting in that jail cell and nobody wants to touch him. All the celebrities. I've yet to hear one celebrity talk about him in a positive way yet since all of this went down, or to be behind him in any sort of way. That's got to be rattling to his mind, going from this hollow confirmation that he's the greatest, but I guess maybe he's realizing just how hollow that was.
I hope so. I mean, that would be a good sign for him to be depressed right now and realizing it. It would show that he's grounded in reality. So that may be what's happening, or he may just be seething.
Yeah.
He may be very angry and feel like all of this is unfair, and everybody's now, not giving him what they're supposed to be giving him, which is the adoration that he still believes he's entitled to.
I know he's been pushing to try and get bail over and over and over. I doubt that will ever take place. But can you think of any reason why it would make sense to release him into any sort of controlled situation? Or would that just be a nightmare with a personality like this?
Yeah, I would. I mean, if I had a vote, I don't have a vote. If I had a vote, but I'd say no. Yeah, keep him in.
Yeah. Can't see any good coming out of anything there. Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
Let's be honest. Nothing kills the thrill of a good murder mystery like a commercial for laundry detergent. It's like someone slapping a closed sign on your favorite dive bar. But you're not here for that, are you? You're here for the good stuff. So ditch the ads and upgrade to True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. With True Crime Today Premium Plus, you get your crime straight. No chaser. Commercial free with extended interviews and early access. It's like getting the bartender's special when the bar's already closed. Search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe and drink it all in.